Turn on the camera now. The chilling text from an unknown number hit me like a blow during dinner with my daughter. Her laughter filled the room, warm and familiar, but the message promised chaos. As she grabbed my hand to take my phone, the door burst open. You won't believe who came. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. My hands trembled as I held the check. The signature looked like mine, but the pen marks wavered where someone had tried too hard to copy my final flourish. $5,000 made out to cash. Dated 3 days ago. I'd never written this check. The kitchen door creaked behind me. Emily walked in, designer purse slung over her shoulder, keys jingling in her manicured fingers. She froze when she saw me at the table. Dad, what are you doing with Emily? I lifted the check higher, my voice steadier than I felt. This is your work, isn't it? This signature clearly isn't mine. Her face went pale. She stepped forward, reaching for the paper. Dad, it's not what you think. I just need it. I pulled the check back, standing up so quickly, my chair scraped against the floor. You forged my signature. Listen to me. Her voice cracked. I'm in trouble, okay? Real trouble. The bills are piling up, and I couldn't ask you again after last time. So, you decided to steal from me instead. Emily's composure shattered. She grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter, knuckles white. It's not stealing. You're my father. I knew you'd help me if you understood. Understood? What? That my daughter is a criminal? The word hit her like a slap. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous. A criminal? Really? After everything I've been through since Mom died, you think I wanted this? My chest tightened. Margaret's death had been hard on both of us. But Emily had spiraled in ways I couldn't follow. The gambling, the shopping, the lies about where the money went. Your mother always worried you loved money more than people, I said quietly. Don't. Emily's voice turned cold. Don't you dare bring Mom into this. She would have understood. She would have helped me by forging checks, by lying to banks. Emily stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, but it sounded broken. You really think this is about one check? You really have no idea, do you? Something in her tone made my stomach drop. What do you mean? She turned away, walking toward the living room. Forget it. Just forget everything. I followed her, still clutching the check. Emily, what did you mean? What don't I know? She was shoving things into her purse now. Her phone charger from the coffee table. A bottle of perfume from the mantel. Moving with the jerky efficiency of someone preparing to run. Emily, answer me. You want answers? She spun around, eyes blazing. Fine. This isn't the first time, Dad. It's not even close. And honestly, I'm not sorry. You sit in this house counting your pennies while I'm drowning. Well, congratulations. You finally caught me. The room tilted. My legs felt weak. What are you saying? I'm saying you never understood me. Mom did, but you just judge. Always just criticism, never solutions. She zipped her purse shut with violent force. I'm done trying to explain myself to someone who sees me as a disappointment. How many times? My voice came out as a whisper. Emily paused at the front door, hand on the knob. She looked back at me with something that might have been pity. More than you want to know, Dad. Way more. The door slammed behind her. Through the window, I watched her stride to her car, heels clicking on the driveway. The engine roared to life, and she was gone. I stood alone in my living room, still holding the check that had started it all. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once, then fell silent. The subway car rocked beneath me as we pulled into the financial district station. I'd barely slept, Emily's words echoing in my head. More than you want to know. The check felt heavy in my jacket pocket, folded and refolded until the creases had worn soft. I needed to know how deep this went. The bank building stretched 40 stories into the gray morning sky. Inside, marble floors reflected fluorescent lights, and the hustle of morning business surrounded me. I asked for someone who could help me review my account history. Mr. Harper. A woman in her 30s approached, extending her hand. I'm Sarah Wilson, loan specialist. I understand you have some questions about your account. We sat at her desk, separated by neat stacks of paperwork and a computer screen She angled toward me. I pulled out the check with shaking fingers. I found this in my kitchen yesterday. I didn't write it. Sarah examined the check, her professional smile faltering slightly. I see. Let me pull up your full account profile. Her fingers clicked across the keyboard. Mr. Harper, you have an active loan for $500,000. The words hit me like ice water. That's impossible. I never took such a loan. It was approved 6 months ago. She turned the screen toward me. Here's your signature on all the documents. I leaned forward, squinting at the digital images. The signature looked exactly like mine, but I remembered nothing about these papers, these dates, these amounts. This is forgery. My voice sounded strange, distant. My daughter. Oh goodness, what has she done? Sarah's expression softened. Mr. Harper, I'm so sorry. This is a very serious situation. If these signatures are fraudulent, we need to show me everything. For the next 20 minutes, she walked me through a trail of financial destruction. The $500,000 loan was just the beginning. There were credit cards opened in my name, smaller loans, cash advances, all bearing my forged signature, all approved because my credit score had been spotless before this began. The total exposure is approximately $700,000, Sarah said gently. My vision blurred. $700,000, my entire retirement savings, my house equity, everything Margaret and I had built over 40 years of marriage gone. When did this start? The first transaction was 11 months ago. A small credit card, just $5,000. Then it escalated. 11 months, right after Margaret's funeral, when Emily had been so devastated, so lost. When I'd been trying to comfort her, she'd been planning this. What are my options? Sarah handed me a stack of paper copies. You'll need to file police reports for identity theft. The bank will investigate. But Mr. Harper, she paused, choosing her words carefully. This level of systematic fraud, especially by a family member, it's going to be complicated. I stood up on unsteady legs, clutching the documents to my chest. The bank's air conditioning felt arctic against my skin. Thank you, I managed. Mr. Harper, I'm required to inform you that some of these loans are already in default. You'll be receiving legal notices soon. The elevator down seemed to take forever. When I finally stepped onto the sidewalk, the summer heat hit me like a wall. People streamed past, talking on phones, carrying coffee, living their normal lives, while mine crumbled around me. I looked down at the papers in my hands. Evidence of my daughter's betrayal printed in black and white. My keys hit the kitchen counter with a sharp clatter. The house felt different now, like walking into a crime scene. I spread the bank documents across the same table where I'd found that first check just 24 hours ago. $700,000. I arranged the papers chronologically, creating a timeline of Emily's deception. November 2024, first credit card. December, personal loan for $20,000. January, another credit card. February, the big one, the $500,000 mortgage against my house. My house. The one Margaret and I had bought as newlyweds, where we'd raised Emily, where Margaret had died in our bedroom upstairs. I walked into the living room, needing to see her face. Margaret's photograph smiled at me from the mantel, taken on our 30th anniversary. She'd worn her blue dress, the one Emily later borrowed, and never returned. What would you tell me to do? I asked the empty room. Margaret had always seen through Emily's charm. She loves money more than people, she'd said once, after Emily had borrowed $200 and disappeared for a week. One day that's going to destroy someone. I defended our daughter, then called Margaret too harsh, too suspicious. Now I understood she'd been protecting me. Back in the kitchen, I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. My options were limited and all painful. I could call the police, file charges for identity theft and fraud. Emily would likely go to prison, or I could try to handle this privately, demand she make payments, somehow salvage our relationship. But the numbers told a different story, even if Emily wanted to pay it back, which seemed unlikely given her reaction yesterday. She didn't have $700,000. Nobody accumulates that kind of debt by accident. This was systematic, calculated theft. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Emily's contact. My finger hovered over the call button. What did I hope would happen? That she'd break down crying, apologize, promise to fix everything. That we'd hug and cry together like we had at Margaret's funeral. The woman who'd slammed out of this house yesterday wasn't that person. The woman who'd forged my signature dozens of times, who'd mortgaged my home without my knowledge, who'd looked me in the eye and called me judgmental. That woman was a stranger, but she was still my daughter. I set the phone down and walked to the window. Emily's childhood swing set still stood in the backyard, rusted but intact. I'd built it myself when she turned 7. Spent 3 weekends making sure every bolt was secure. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent her whole life trying to keep her safe, and she'd grown up to be the person I needed protection from. My phone buzzed. A text from my old partner, Mike. Haven't heard from you in weeks. Coffee this afternoon. Mike Reynolds. 25 years with the NYPD. Retired now, but still sharp as a blade. He'd seen every kind of family tragedy, every kind of betrayal. Maybe he'd know what to do when your own child destroys your life. I picked up the phone again, but instead of calling Mike, I found myself staring at Emily's number. She needed to know I discovered everything. Needed to know this wasn't going away. Whether I called the police or tried to work something out, she had to understand the magnitude of what she'd done. My finger moved to her contact. One call would start a conversation that would change everything between us forever. But silence wouldn't make the debt disappear or the signatures less forged. I pressed the number and listened to it ring. 24 hours later, I stared at Emily's contact on my phone screen. The bank documents lay spread across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. I'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times, but my fingers still trembled over the call button. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. "What do you want, Dad?" Her voice carried the same cold edge from our last conversation. "Emily, I know about the $500,000 loan. Explain this to me." Silence stretched between us. I could hear a television in the background. Some comedy show with canned laughter that felt obscene given our circumstances. "What loan?" she asked finally, but something in her tone had shifted. Uncertainty crept in where confidence had been. "The $500,000 you borrowed against my house." The bank showed me everything. "Dad, you're exaggerating. These are just temporary financial difficulties." Temporary. I gripped the phone tighter, my voice rising. "I have 12 forged documents here, Emily. 12 credit cards, personal loans, cash advances, $700,000 total." The television went silent on her end. I pictured her reaching for the remote with shaking hands, the same way I'd reached for that first check. "You went to the bank." Her voice came out small, like the little girl who used to ask for bedtime stories. I had to know how deep this went, and now I do. I picked up one of the documents, reading from it. November 15th, 24. Personal loan $20,000. December 3rd. Another credit card. January. Stop. The word came out sharp. Just stop. Okay. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far. You mortgaged my house, Emily. The house your mother and I bought together. Where she died. Where I planned to live out my final years. You always think only about money. Her voice turned vicious again. What about what I've been going through? What about my problems? My free hand clenched into a fist. Your problems? You created these problems by stealing from your own father. I didn't steal. I needed help. And you're always so stingy with everything. Mom was right about you. The mention of Margaret hit like a physical blow. Don't you dare mention your mother. She would be ashamed of what you've become. Ashamed? She understood me. She knew what it was like to need things, to want a better life. You never understood either of us. I stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, Mrs. Chun from next door was watering her garden, living her peaceful life while mine exploded around me. Your mother warned me about your relationship with money. I said quietly. She said you loved it more than people. I defended you then. She said that? Emily's voice cracked. She said one day it would destroy someone. I thought she meant you. I never imagined she meant me. Dad, listen. No, you listen. The words came out harder than I intended. I trusted you. After your mother died, I tried to be there for you. I gave you money when you asked. I never questioned where it went. And this is how you repay me. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The bills, the payments, pressure you created. I had a simple retirement plan. Enough money to live comfortably. Maybe take a trip Margaret and I always talked about. Now I might lose everything because my own daughter is a criminal. I'm not a criminal. You forged my signature dozens of times. You took out loans in my name. You stole $700,000. What do you call that? The line went quiet except for her breathing. Heavy, angry breathing that reminded me of her tantrums as a child. I call it survival, she said finally. And if you can't understand that, then maybe Mom was right about more than just money. What's that supposed to mean? Figure it out yourself. The line went dead. I stood holding the silent phone, staring at the black screen that reflected my tired face. In the distance, I could hear children playing in someone's backyard, their laughter carrying on the evening air. $700,000. My daughter, my only family left. I set the phone down next to the documents and tried to figure out what came next. The next morning, I climbed the familiar stairs to Mike's apartment, clutching a manila folder stuffed with bank documents. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through deep water. I'd barely slept after Emily hung up on me. Mike answered on the second knock, his weathered face creasing with immediate concern. John, you look terrible. I need to talk to someone who understands criminals. He stepped aside, gesturing me into his small kitchen. Coffee percolated on the counter, filling the air with familiar comfort. Mike had always been a steady presence. 25 years with the NYPD, retired now, but still sharp as a razor. What's going on? I sat at his scarred wooden table and opened the folder. Papers spilled out like accusations. Mike, I don't know what to do. She's my daughter. He poured 2 cups of coffee, black for both of us, and sat down across from me. His gray eyes, the same ones that had interrogated countless suspects, focused on the documents. Start from the beginning. So I did. The forged check in my kitchen, the bank visit, the horrifying discovery of systematic fraud. Mike listened without interruption, occasionally picking up a paper to examine it more closely. $500,000, he said finally, setting down a loan document. John, this is serious crime. This isn't shoplifting or writing a bad check. But I can't put my own child in prison. Mike leaned back in his chair, studying me with the patience of someone who'd heard every family tragedy imaginable. And she can destroy you financially. Have you thought about that? I had all night lying in bed staring at the ceiling where Margaret and I used to plan our future together. Give me a little more time. Maybe she'll come to her senses. Time for what? To forge more signatures? To fix this somehow? Mike stood up, walking to his kitchen window that overlooked the same Brooklyn street where we'd both lived for decades. John, in my experience, people who commit this level of fraud don't suddenly develop a conscience. She's not some street criminal. She's my daughter who stole $700,000 from you. He turned back to face me. Family or not, that's felony fraud. Multiple counts. I watched him organize the papers into neat piles. His cop instincts taking over. Document by document. He was building a case, probably without even realizing it. What would you do? I asked. If it were my kid? Mike sat back down, his expression softening slightly. I want to believe they could change, too. But I'd also protect myself. How? File a police report. Get this documented officially. Even if you don't press charges right away, you need legal protection. The thought of walking to a police station, of telling strangers that my daughter was a thief, made my stomach turn. I can't. Not yet. Mike nodded slowly, but I caught something in his expression. A quick calculation, the kind of look he used to get when planning how to approach a difficult case. Okay, he said. But John, promise me something. Don't let her talk you into anything stupid. Don't sign anything. Don't give her access to any more accounts. I won't. And keep these documents safe. He gestured to the papers. They're your only proof. I gathered everything back into the folder, suddenly exhausted. Mike walked me to the door, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "You're a good father," he said, "but sometimes good fathers have to make hard choices." I walked home slowly, the folder tucked under my arm like a shield. Behind me, I didn't see Mike return to his kitchen, didn't see him pick up his phone, didn't see the determined expression that crossed his weathered face. Some choices, I was about to learn, get made for you. 3 days passed in silence. I waited by the phone, hoping Emily would call with an explanation, an apology, some sign that the daughter I'd raised still existed somewhere inside the stranger who'd hung up on me. On Thursday evening, while I sat picking at a microwave dinner, my phone rang. Emily's name lit up the screen. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was completely different, soft, hesitant, almost shy. "I've been thinking about our last conversation." I nearly dropped the phone. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I know, and I'm sorry about that." I was angry and scared, and I said things I didn't mean. She paused, and I could hear her take a shaky breath. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching these past few days." My heart began to pound with something that felt dangerously like hope. "Have you?" "I realize I hurt you. Really hurt you. And I want to make everything right." Her voice carried the same tone she'd used as a child when she'd broken something and wanted to fix it before I noticed. "I want that, too, sweetheart. Can you come for dinner tomorrow night? I'll cook your favorite. That pot roast with the carrots you always loved when Mom made it." Tears pricked at my eyes. Margaret's pot roast. Emily hadn't cooked it since the funeral. "Of course, I knew you'd understand eventually." "I do understand. And Dad, bring all those papers from the bank. We'll go through everything together and figure out how to fix this mess." The relief flooding through me was so intense I had to sit down. "Really? You mean that?" "I mean it. 7 o'clock tomorrow." "Okay." "And Dad?" "Yes. I love you. I know I don't say it enough, but I do." After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen grinning like a fool. The Emily who'd called me was the Emily I remembered. Thoughtful, remorseful, ready to take responsibility. The harsh woman from our previous conversation must have been fear-talking, panic at being caught. People could change, especially when they realized how much they stood to lose. I spent the next day planning what I'd say, how we'd work together to resolve the financial mess. Maybe she could get a loan from her company, or we could set up a payment plan with the banks. The important thing was that we'd face it together as a family. At 6:30, I loaded the manila folder into my car and drove toward Manhattan. Traffic was light, and I found parking right outside Emily's building. Everything seemed to be falling into place. As I rode the elevator to her floor, I caught myself humming, something I hadn't done since Margaret died. The smell of pot roast hit me as soon as Emily opened the door. And for a moment, it felt like stepping back in time. "Dad." She hugged me tightly, and I noticed she'd done her hair the way Margaret used to like it. "I'm so glad you came." The table was set with her good china, candles flickering between wine glasses. She'd even put on the dress I'd bought her last Christmas. "This looks wonderful, Em. I wanted it to be special, a new beginning for us." She took the folder from my hands, setting it carefully on the side table. "We'll look at all this after dinner, okay? I want to understand everything." I squeezed her hand, overwhelmed with gratitude that my daughter had come back to me. I had no idea she was setting the perfect trap. I woke before dawn, my mind immediately turning to tonight's dinner. For the first time in days, I felt something resembling hope stirring in my chest. Emily wanted to fix things. My daughter was coming back to me. The morning routine felt different, purposeful. I selected my best navy suit, the one Margaret always said made my eyes look younger, and pressed it carefully. Every crease had to be perfect for tonight. After breakfast, I pulled out our family photo albums, something I hadn't done since Margaret's funeral, page after page of Emily's childhood, her first day of school, missing front teeth in Christmas pictures, graduation from high school with that radiant smile. Where had that sweet girl gone? There she was at age 7, flour in her hair from helping Margaret bake cookies. And at 15, rolling her eyes at my camera, but laughing despite herself. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. Somewhere between her college years and now, the daughter I knew had disappeared, replaced by someone desperate enough to steal from her own father. Tonight, I get her back. I told Margaret's photograph on the mantel. By noon, I'd organized all the bank documents into chronological order. Each paper told part of the story of Emily's desperation, but tonight they'd also tell the story of our reconciliation. We'd work through this together, create a payment plan, rebuild our relationship on honesty. The flower shop on 7th Avenue had white roses. Emily's favorite since she was small. Margaret used to buy them for her birthday every year. Special occasion? The elderly woman behind the counter asked. I'm reconciling with my daughter. Her face lit up. How wonderful. These will be perfect. I selected a dozen, asking her to wrap them in pale yellow paper. Emily used to say yellow was the color of new beginnings. The afternoon passed slowly. I cleaned the house again, though it was already spotless. Checked my appearance in the mirror a dozen times. Practiced what I'd say. Emily, we can work through anything together. I love you more than you'll ever know. At 5 o'clock, I called a cab. The documents went into my old leather briefcase, the flowers cradled carefully in my arms. Margaret's engagement ring, which I'd been saving for Emily's wedding day, went into my jacket pocket. Maybe tonight I'd give it to her anyway, as a symbol of trust restored. The subway ride to Manhattan felt eternal. Other passengers hurried past, lost in their own lives, while I clutched the briefcase that contained the evidence of my daughter's crimes and our path to forgiveness. Emily's building rose before me, glass and steel reaching toward the darkening sky. I checked my watch. 6:55 p.m., perfect timing. In the elevator, my reflection looked back at me, hopeful, nervous, still believing that love could conquer anything. The flowers filled the small space with their sweet scent, promising new beginnings. Tonight, everything would be different. The elevator doors opened to reveal Emily waiting in her doorway, stunning in the blue dress I'd bought her last Christmas. She rushed forward, embracing me with what felt like genuine warmth. Dad, you look wonderful. She took the flowers, burying her face in the petals. White roses, you remembered. Her apartment smelled like pot roast, just as promised. The dining table was set with her good china, candles flickering between crystal glasses. For a moment, it felt like stepping back in time to family dinners when Margaret was alive. This is beautiful, Em. I wanted tonight to be special, a new beginning for us. She guided me to the couch, taking my briefcase and setting it carefully on the side table. Wine? I got that Merlot you like. We sat across from each other at the elegant table, but something felt off. Emily kept glancing at my briefcase, and I noticed scattered bills peeking out from beneath magazines on her coffee table. Credit card statements, overdue notices, the detritus of financial chaos barely hidden. The pot roast is just like Mom's, I said, trying to recapture the warmth of our phone conversation. I found her recipe card. Emily's smile seemed strained. Dad, about those documents you brought. We'll get to that. I cut another piece of meat, savoring the familiar flavors. I'm just glad we're talking again. Me too. But her leg bounced under the table. Nervous energy she couldn't quite contain. How much did you say the total was? 700,000. I watched her face carefully, but Emily, the important thing is that we're going to solve this together. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. Absolutely. That's exactly what I want to discuss. Her fingers drummed against her wine glass. I've been thinking about the logistics. I'm so relieved you're taking this seriously. Oh, I am. Emily leaned forward, her expression shifting into something more calculated. Here's what I need from you, Dad. To pay back that money, I'll need capital to get started. Seed money for the repayment plan. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Seed money? Just a small loan, maybe 100,000 to begin with. I have investment opportunities that could generate the income to pay you back quickly. The pot roast turned to ash in my mouth. Emily, you owe me $700,000. I didn't come here to loan you more money. But, Dad, Think about it logically. Her voice took on the patronizing tone she'd used as a teenager when explaining why she needed a later curfew. I can't make money to pay you back if I don't have money to invest. I set down my fork, staring at my daughter across the candle-lit table. Are you seriously asking me for more money? I'm proposing a business solution. Emily's mask of sweetness was slipping. You want your money back, right? This is how we make that happen. Emily, this is absurd. You stole from me. You forged my signature dozens of times. You mortgaged my house. And now you want me to give you more? It's not giving, it's investing. Her voice rose sharply. You're being incredibly short-sighted about this. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'm being short-sighted. You committed multiple felonies. Everything I did was for survival. Emily stood as well, her FAA finally cracking completely. You have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under, what it's like to live in this city, to maintain any kind of decent life. So, you decided to destroy mine instead. I decided to use resources that were ultimately going to be mine anyway. She gestured wildly around her expensive apartment. When you die, I inherit everything. I just needed access to some of it now. The words hit me like physical blows. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was a stranger wearing Emily's face, coldly calculating my death as a business opportunity. Get out, she said suddenly. What? Get out of my apartment. Take your moral outrage and your self-righteousness and leave. Emily moved toward the side table where my briefcase sat. And take these documents with you. I reached for the briefcase, but she was closer. Our hands collided on the leather handle. Give me that, I said. No. Her grip tightened. I think I'll keep these. We stood there both holding on to the briefcase, our faces inches apart. In her eyes, I saw nothing of the little girl who used to beg for bedtime stories. Only cold calculation and barely controlled rage. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The police officers moved through Emily's apartment with methodical precision, their cameras flashing as they documented every scattered document. I stood by the window, watching them work, still holding my phone with that mysterious message glowing on the screen. Mr. Harper. Detective Morrison approached me, his notebook ready. We'll need a formal statement about the crimes committed against you. I nodded numbly, unable to process how quickly everything had changed. An hour ago, I'd been hoping for reconciliation with my daughter. Now she was in handcuffs, and strangers were photographing evidence of her betrayal. These documents will become evidence in the prosecution, Morrison explained, carefully bagging each paper. The originals with the forged signatures are particularly important. Will I be testifying in court? Most likely, yes. Your testimony will be crucial for establishing the timeline and extent of the fraud. He paused, studying my face. Are you all right, sir? This has been a traumatic evening. Traumatic felt like an understatement. Detective, how did you know to come here tonight? How did you know about the dinner? The timing? Morrison exchanged a glance with his partner, then smiled slightly. You have very caring friends, Mr. Harper. Someone called in a tip about ongoing financial fraud and suggested tonight would be the perfect time to make an arrest. My hands trembled as the implication hit me. A friend called you? Someone with law enforcement experience? They'd been conducting their own investigation and felt it was time for official intervention. Morrison handed me his business card. They coordinated with us to ensure everything was handled properly. Mike. It had to be Mike. 20 minutes later, I sat in the back of a taxi. Emily's apartment building shrinking behind us as we headed toward Brooklyn. The driver attempted small talk about the weather, but I couldn't focus on anything except the revelations settling in my chest like a stone. My oldest friend had orchestrated my daughter's arrest. Back home, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the same family photos I'd looked at that morning when I'd been full of hope about reconciliation. Margaret's face smiled at me from the mantel, and I wondered what she would think about tonight's events. Would she be proud that justice had been served? Heartbroken that our daughter was in jail, grateful that Mike had protected me when I couldn't protect myself, I picked up my phone, scrolling to Mike's contact. My finger hovered over the call button, just as it had when I'd first decided to confront Emily about the forged check. That felt like a lifetime ago. The mysterious SMS was still on my screen. Turn on camera. There's going to be a show now. It made perfect sense. Mike had wanted video evidence of Emily's confession, her demands for more money, her complete lack of remorse. He'd orchestrated the entire thing. I pressed Mike's number and listened to it ring. Mike, you organized the arrest, didn't you? No hesitation in his voice. Yes, I did. I'd called him at 8 in the morning after a sleepless night spent staring at the ceiling. His direct admission still hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd known it was true. John, you never could have done this yourself, he continued matter-of-factly. You love her too much to see clearly. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you left my apartment, I could see you'd never press charges, never protect yourself, so I decided to protect you instead. Mike's voice carried the same calm authority he'd used during his police days. I followed her for 3 days. You followed Emily. She was meeting other potential victims, John. Elderly men mostly. She was already working on her next targets while manipulating you for more money. Papers rustled on his end of the line. I documented everything, the meetings, the locations, the pattern of behavior. My coffee mug sat forgotten on the kitchen table, growing cold, while Mike explained how he'd spent those days gathering evidence like the detective he'd always been. I contacted Detective Morrison on Tuesday. Old colleague of mine, good man. Showed him the documents you'd given me, plus my surveillance photos. They'd been looking for someone matching Emily's profile. The SMS last night, that was you. I needed video evidence of her demanding more money from you. Proof that she had no intention of making restitution. Mike paused. I was watching from across the street, John. When I saw her grab your briefcase, saw the argument escalating. I sent the text and called Morrison. I walked to my window, looking out at the quiet Brooklyn street where Mike and I had been neighbors for 20 years. You could have told me. No, I couldn't. You would have tried to stop me, or warned her, or found some way to sabotage your own protection. His tone softened slightly. Friends protect each other even when it hurts. She's going to prison. She belongs in prison. John, if I hadn't acted, you'd be bankrupt within a year. She was bleeding you dry and moving on to other victims. How many elderly people should suffer because you can't face the truth about your daughter? The words stung because they were accurate. I would have kept hoping, kept believing she could change, right up until she destroyed me completely. What happens now? Now you testify when the time comes. You tell the truth about what she did to you. The prosecution has a solid case. They'll probably offer her a plea deal to avoid trial. I sat back down at the kitchen table, suddenly exhausted. I don't know how to feel about this. Feel grateful that someone cared enough to do what you couldn't do yourself. Mike's voice was gentle now. Feel relieved that your financial future is secure. Feel proud that you're finally holding her accountable. Will you come to the hearing with me? Of course. We'll face this together just like we've faced everything else over the years. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, processing everything Mike had told me. He'd risked our friendship to save me from my own inability to see Emily clearly. He'd used his professional skills and contacts to protect me when I was too emotionally compromised to protect myself. Margaret had always said Mike was the best friend a person could have. Now I understood why. 3 weeks later, Mike picked me up in his old Honda, and we drove together toward the federal courthouse in Manhattan for Emily's sentencing hearing. The federal courthouse rose before us like a monument to consequences. Its limestone columns stark against the July morning sky. Mike and I climbed the steps together, my best suit feeling formal and foreign after weeks of casual clothes and sleepless nights. Ready for this? Mike asked, straightening his own tie. As ready as I can be. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I had expected, wood paneled and serious. Emily sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back severely, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd served me dinner 3 weeks ago. She didn't look at me when I entered. Judge Patricia Thornton presided it with quiet authority, her gray hair and wire, rimmed glasses giving her the appearance of someone who'd seen every kind of human failing and wasn't surprised by any of it. Mr. Harper, she said when my turn came to speak, would you like to provide a victim impact statement? I stood on unsteady legs, the prepared speech trembling in my hands. Your Honor, my daughter stole $700,000 from me over the course of 11 months. She forged my signature, opened accounts in my name, and mortgaged my house without my knowledge. My voice grew stronger as I continued. But the financial damage isn't the worst part. She destroyed my trust, manipulated my love for her, and showed no remorse until she was caught. Even then, she demanded more money instead of offering to make things right. Emily's shoulders shook slightly, but she still didn't turn around. I love my daughter, I concluded, but I can't enable her destructive behavior anymore. She needs to face the consequences of her choices. When Emily was finally allowed to speak, she stood slowly, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry for what I did to my father. I was desperate and made terrible choices. But even her apology felt calculated, practiced during weeks in custody. Judge Thornton's sentencing was comprehensive and final. Emily Harper, you are hereby sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for identity theft, document forgery, and bank fraud. You are also ordered to provide full restitution to the victim in the amount of $700,000. The gavel came down with a sound like a door closing forever. As they led Emily away, she finally looked at me. I hope you're happy now, she said quietly. I hope you learn responsibility, I replied. Outside the courthouse, Mike and I walked slowly down the steps, the summer heat washing over us like a cleansing wave. Justice has been served, friend, Mike said simply. I nodded, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace, not happiness. There was nothing happy about watching your child face the consequences of their crimes. But peace finally after months of manipulation and lies. Thank you, I told Mike, for doing what I couldn't do. That's what friends are for. We walked toward his car. Two old men who'd learned that sometimes protecting someone means refusing to enable their worst impulses. Margaret would have understood. She'd always known that love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was just another form of harm. Emily would serve her time, pay her debt, and hopefully learn something about accountability. I would rebuild my financial security and move forward with the knowledge that I'd finally chosen justice over misguided loyalty. The scales had balanced at last. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel as we are aiming to reach 1,000 subscribers before a month, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.